All right, everyone, here we go. Welcome to another, crossover episode of Null Byte and Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody, and today we have a special guest on, an unplanned special guest. Hello, wait, you're not Killian, you're Stefan. Welcome, Stefan, aka Spacehoon. Yeah, well, welcome to the show. So we featured your various projects a lot of different times on Null Byte, so it kind of seems appropriate to have you on for a demonstration about Wi-Fi hacking, and that's what we're doing today. Now, Stefan has no idea which presentation we're doing today because I haven't told him yet, so you're going to be finding out at the same time that he does. Now, we're also fully live, so I can see that there is plenty of activity in the chat already. So if you guys have questions during the chat, I'm going to be taking a look and trying to answer them, provided they are reasonable. Now, we're going to do another pretty exciting demo today. And in some of our previous demonstrations, we've had Killian come on and show some pretty spooky, like ransomware, like high sophistication, or well, maybe not high sophistication, but I'll just say elegant attacks that allow you to like break into like, exchange servers and do lots of other stuff that maybe a lower sophistication person wouldn't know how to do. Maybe they don't know how to like work around Active Directory or Windows as well. And they just know a couple basic lines of like Python or some basic networking and network hacking techniques. So I wanted to design a demo that basically anybody who's like in high school could probably do because they use free open source tools that are available for everyone. And they take advantage of flaws in Wi-Fi that Stefan and I are very, very familiar with. So when it comes to having a bad Wi-Fi password, Stefan, what is the biggest risk that I guess anybody could potentially run into?
You mean like capturing the handshake and cracking the password because it's so weak it's in the word list?
Exactly. Can you expand on that a little bit if people haven't heard of that before?
So we, when you log into a Wi-Fi network, a few packets are exchanged. And this key exchange, you can capture that with a special Wi-Fi card. And I guess that's the setup I'm already seeing here a little bit.
Exactly.
And if you have captured that exchange, you can crack it, and you can crack it offline. You don't need to actively send packets to the router or anything. Once you have this, then you basically try to go through a list of passwords or generate passwords or whatever your technique is, encrypt them and see if they match with the packets you captured. And if they do, then you just discovered the password.
Awesome. Sorry, I think I don't know if our Air Force, if the U.S. Air Force is flying directly over my house or your house, but it's flying over someone's house. All right, so basically what we're going to be doing here is exactly what Stefan says. The first step of our attack here is we're going to, let's say that this is like a medium-sized business or like a local government or a school or a police station or somewhere else that or a hospital, like somewhere else that has some data that might need to be stored on site. And maybe for some reason, often there's like laws and stuff, they have to keep it on site. They're not allowed to put it in the cloud, or maybe they just don't want to. So often they'll just have some IT person come in, set up something like an FTP file share that can be accessed locally by anybody on the network. And they'll kind of forget that, the Wi-Fi network is also connected, and that if technically anybody was able to get into the Wi-Fi, then they would be able to just knock right on the door of this file share. And if you have an easy to remember password like Susan123 or something like that, if Susan's the one who's going to be accessing the file share and dropping all the financial data in it, then we have a problem, because it means that anybody on the outside from potentially up to a mile away could break into your Wi-Fi and then start logging into local services. And again, this is a demo that I designed to be so simple that basically anybody can do to demonstrate that, hey, if you're a business that does this, or if you're working for a business that does this, show them this demo, or even better, show them the Varonis like attack lab demo that goes into extreme depth if you really want to convince them. But it's just kind of amazing that I have seen many real businesses actually do this. And again, this will be things like an SSH login that's easy to guess, or a FTP file share that's really easy to access. This could be a network attached file share as well, where someone just gets a NAS like disk and then plugs it in and forgets about it. I have seen this at a logistics company that was storing all of their logistics tracking data on an FTP file share. I've seen it at a media company that was taking giant films and then mixing the sound and storing them locally basically behind a Wi-Fi network with a single word as the password. I have seen this in medical settings where medical billing information is stored on a local server to keep it safe, but the password is so easy that it's not safe at all. And they also give out the Wi-Fi to patients. So patients can just take a crack at logging into this big folder that shares all the information. And I've even seen a music venue that shares all the tax documents for celebrities on a file share, which is accessible on the Wi-Fi network that they give out to any band that comes to play at the venue, as well as all of their friends. So like these are all pretty serious problems when it comes to sensitive information being stored, like either you could think of it as like on a home server or also in some of these like medium-sized businesses or regional businesses that are basically aren't allowed to upload data. So the first step of what we're going to do is show how weak it is to have a Wi-Fi network that's connected to important stuff. Basically, if your Wi-Fi is connected to critical stuff, it needs to have a crazy hard password. And we're going to show what the consequences of not doing that today are. Now, also, I did a really fun video on the Security Forward channel, which was how far can Wi-Fi really go, where we went up by the Hollywood Hills, like the Hollywood side in Los Angeles, and I pointed a Yagi antenna just in a couple different directions. And then from those packets, I went on Wiggle Wi-Fi, found out how far away the Wi-Fi network was, and I calculated the distance I could see. 5 miles was the distance I was actually able to see from that point. So if you have a clear line of sight, if your target is in a skyscraper or a tall building, they might think that, hey, I don't need to have a secure Wi-Fi password because I'm way up in the building. But if someone points an antenna at you, they could reasonably be about a mile away and still be able to connect to, grab a handshake and start manipulating stuff on your network. So I would say that viably, from my experience, you can execute the attack I'm going to be showing today from about a mile away. So, I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, you have to be close to the target. Well, no, not really. You can do this with a directional antenna, provided you have a clear line of sight. And if people are getting mad because like you can't even get Wi-Fi in like your living room, well, it has to do with a clear line of sight. If your house is made out of like lead paint, then like you might have some issues. So, now, speaking of doing what we're doing today, there's a lot of different ways we can accomplish it. I'm going to be using a Linux computer. I've actually done this demonstration using a Mac OS computer as well. My computer just locked. Hold on. It scared me. I thought the whole thing died. I've done this demonstration using a Mac OS computer, which doesn't have the ability to kick devices off of a Wi-Fi network to capture the password. Instead, I just use, where did I put it? Oh, what is this, Stefan? You recognize this?
Oh, it's an Andromeda board.
Exactly. So another incarnation that I was just sent very recently was from Meltronics, the D author. This was also very cool. So our friend Jonty from Meltronics just sent us this. Satonic is the name you might know him by. So we're also going to be testing some of these out, probably on a future stream. But I just wanted to say it's super cool that while we're doing this demo, one of the ways we could do this is using one of Stefan's tools to capture the Wi-Fi handshake by kicking them off the network and just using Wireshark to essentially capture the handshake when they reconnect. So I love this project. I think it's super cool. And since we have Stefan here today, I wanted to give it a shout out because yeah, this demo, by the way, sucked to develop. It was not fun because there's so many moving pieces, and I hope to never do it again. So I hope you guys enjoy this because like they often warn people like, oh, don't do live demos. Like try not to have too many moving pieces. Make sure it's easy to replicate. No, I'm using a Raspberry Pi running live on like the Starlink network, which is also connected to like a virtual machine with like a wireless network adapter that I found in a kiosk at a photocopy place. Like this is like not a very stable setup. So we're gonna have fun today. Just so you know, some things are probably going to die. But what we've done here is let's go ahead and switch over to my screen if we can. And what we're going to do is have my actually, this is fun. So, Stefan, did you know that I run Arch?
No.
Okay, well, for this stream, we're actually going to be attacking a Kali Linux system with an Arch, technically Manjaro Raspberry Pi. So I picked a Raspberry Pi today because I wanted to use just like, something that's really cheap. So I'm using a Raspberry Pi 400 just because I like the keyboard, but you could do this with a Raspberry Pi 4, a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. It doesn't really matter. The point here is that our attacker today is a Raspberry Pi running Manjaro. And what we're seeing right now is actually my virtual machine on my computer, which is basically serving up an FTP. And this could be like a Windows file share. It could be whatever can serve up an FTP server. This is something where we're just hosting some files. And if I go over here, I can type ls, and I can see exactly what files are being shared. So I can see that I have bankdetails.csv. That seems important. Police records.csv. Hospital data.txt. Like, that's terrible. So I can even cat and make sure that there is something actually in here. Bank details.csv. Oh no, it's all the information for these customers. You can see the information for Bank of You, Bank of Me, and the Bank of Us. That's everyone. So, all right, like, that's terrible. We've got way too much information here. But again, this is something that, let's say I'm the secretary. I'm getting sick and tired of needing to pull up this information. I'm like, you know what? Everybody who has to work with this information, just put it in this file share. We can all access it. We're not allowed to upload it to any of our Dropboxes because it's customer data, but our IT guy says we can just host it locally. So right now, this is the repository of information that people are sharing. And so if we're a small business, if we're a school, if we're a jail, I guess, or whatever, maybe we have some of this critical information that we need on a daily basis. We're transferring between different people, but really, actually, it's basically just behind a Wi-Fi network, because this is accessible to anybody who is on the same Wi-Fi. This isn't segmented. It's basically what I call a flat, well, what we call like a flat network. And Stefan, do you know what a flat network is?
I would guess there isn't much hierarchy. If you're in, you see everything.
That's exactly it. So there's no segmentation, basically. So if somebody joins the network, they could be some random person. They're able to try to log into the router. They can see everybody on the network. They're not assigned their own subnetwork that's like safer or separated from critical services. And I see this all the time where, like, why would you want a guest on your network to try to log into your security cameras or like print a test page on your printer? It really makes no sense to have a flat network like this if you're a business that's offering this up. But I guarantee you, if you check the free Wi-Fi and do something like run Bing on your phone, which is a free app to scan the network, you'll be able to see that actually, like, you can usually see a lot of stuff that you shouldn't be seeing. And that's really the core of the attack that we're going to do today is basically this setup is insecure because we have a relatively weak password. If you want to see, if you want to try this for yourself, by the way, you can spin up a virtual machine and you can use a single line of Python to host an FTP server with a name and password of your choice. In this case, I've set it up to just be root and tour. Obviously, that's not very secure. And this is for the purpose of demo. But if I had a little bit more time, I could make this password like maybe a single word or 2 words or something not too complicated and still crack it in a reasonable amount of time. So I also have, let's see. Yeah, so these are the files I have hosted here. This is set up. We are on a network called Straz. So that's the one that I have to try to hack into. And right now, the password to Straz is not good. It's a bad password. So our attacker is going to need to try to get into this network from a point of basically no knowledge. So let me try to switch my screen over. All right, so this, and I have to switch my input too, because it's actually Raspberry Pi 400. This is my Raspberry Pi 400. It is currently running Manjaro, as you can tell by it being all sleek and cool. And if you haven't tried out Manjaro on the Raspberry Pi, I actually highly recommend it. I think it's super cool and I like it a lot. So I currently have I think I have a Panda Wireless PAU09 wireless network adapter plugged into this because unfortunately the Raspberry Pi 400, I do not know why, decided to use a different Wi-Fi chipset that doesn't allow you to do like packet injection and monitor mode for some reason. I've tried it in multiple operating systems and it just will not work. So some of the Wi-Fi trickery that we're going to do does not work on the Raspberry Pi 400, but does for some reason work on the Raspberry Pi 400 and the Raspberry Pi 3 and 3B Plus and so on and so forth. So we could actually do this attack without a separate wireless network adapter if we wanted to, if we just used an earlier version of Raspberry Pi that doesn't come in the shape of a keyboard. I'm kind of still pissed about this. I don't know if you can tell. I just think, whatever. So
it doesn't include the mouse.
Yeah, and it doesn't even include a mouse or trackpad. Just like, come on, you guys. So also, I can see that someone has noticed my Ghost in the Shell background. I see someone in the chat has excellent taste. Nice to notice each other. So yes, we're going to go ahead, and this computer, I've named it Doodlebug, and I've named that for intimidation factor. We're going to use Doodlebug to try to hack into the network here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to try to ifconfig. We can see that we have our incredibly long wireless card name. Thank you so much, Arch, for that. And I can see that it's actually already in monitor mode, which I don't remember putting it in, but I've had this computer running up for quite some time for fear that I mess up this demo. So I can see that that's probably something I did. So if I hadn't already had this in monitor mode, the way that I would do it is I would copy this overly long network name, and I would say sudo airmon ng. I'm going to make it bigger before someone complains. How's that? Is that big enough for you? Oh, actually, that's too big. No, it's too big. It's too big. Okay. Sudo airmon ng starts, and then the name of the wireless card. I would paste in here. It's already in monitor mode, but this is the command I would run. It would put it in monitor mode, and then I would be able to use this card to take the next step, which is scanning and trying to identify like which different network, which different channel this network's on. All right, so the next command we're going to use is arrow-dump-ng. Stefan, are you familiar with arrow-dump-ng?
Yeah, it's part of the crack suite, and it will show us the networks that are around and which channels they're on, and so forth.
That is correct, and it has a number of filters. Wait, what is that? Every machine I have also has a different password. So that's really fun. Oh, sorry. Do you mean -- help? Clearly I do. I'm sorry. I just hate it when people do that.
It's funny how it knows what you want to type, but won't just like do it.
But refuses to give it to me. It's like, I'm sorry. You play by my rules or we don't play at all. All right. So we have a number of different filters that we can use to specify what we're looking for. For example, I already know that Straz is the network that I'm looking for. So if I want to, I can kind of go through here and see that, oh, if I want to do that, I can filter APs by ESSID or BSSID. Which should I use?
Well, the ESSID is for your network name, so that's what you want to use. BSSID would be the MAC address, but I can't remember that we had that yet.
Yeah. So, right. So we don't have the MAC address type, but we just know the name of the network. So if we don't want to see absolutely every single network, we can do sudo. Oh no, where'd it go? I'm just going to clear it. Sudo arrow dump ng. Oh no, I need that super long name. I'm so sorry, you guys. I need to get that long name again. Okay. All right. Oh my god, it's so long.
Just keep that in your clipboard.
Yeah, I have to. Well, then I have also the argument that I'm going to instantly forget.
But it's --ESSID, isn't it?
It is, Stefan. It is. But because I'm so lazy, first
I can remember it for you.
Look, I put it at the end. How smart am I? So sudo no ng, and then we're gonna do this horrible long name, which I'm gonna copy and paste, and then we're gonna specify the ESSID. So hopefully this works. So we're gonna say Straz. Hopefully I don't need to put that in quotes. Oh wow! Look, did it find it? Yeah,
looks like it.
Let me expand this a little bit. There. Okay, cool. Let me cancel. All right, so look at that. We found our network, and surprise, surprise, there's some devices connected to it. Now, that is pretty interesting, and it allows us to start doing things like building like a Wireshark filter, for example, if we wanted to specify the channel that we're listening on, and we also wanted to specify the BSSID. So very, very useful. So let's go ahead, and we're going to do, oh boy. So we're going to do a different command. I'm just going to use this because it already has some of the stuff I need. We're going to do arrow dump ng. We're going to filter this, but we're also going to specify which channel we're listening on. Stefan, can you explain why channel hopping might cause problems if we really want to listen in on a certain network?
Well, we're trying to capture packets here, right? So if we would channel hop, then it means, we are constantly changing channels, and that means we are maybe losing packets that we want to capture. But now you are going onto the same channel this network is on. So we are only listening to that one channel, and if communication is happening there, then we won't miss anything, basically.
Right, exactly. So another thing we can do now is, since we know the channel, I can actually change some of this out, and we can use a different tool to gather the handshake. So we have the information about the channel we're on. We know what card we're using. What if I just change this out with B-side NG? Do you know this tool?
I have heard of it. Let's say
So
that.
this is a tool that is, let's say, a little rough. If you don't run it with any arguments, it will basically do something that is almost definitely illegal in your country, because it will start attacking every nearby wireless network and trying to crack them. So I'm going to hazard a guess that the argument here is -B, but I guess we'll find out. And hopefully it doesn't attack anything else. So let me explain the command here and what we're doing. We're saying sudo bside ng. That's this program that's going to go absolutely wild and start attacking Wi-Fi networks, kicking off connected devices, and trying to grab a handshake. It's going to use this wireless card at WLP1S, whatever. It's only going to specify channel 11. So it's not going to mess around by jumping onto different channels and potentially missing a handshake. And then it's going to specify -B or BSSID. So if I really want to check this out, I guess I can just open a new terminal and just do bside ng-h. Please just give me the help menu. Yeah, okay. So we can see that if we do -B, we'll be able to specify this by the victim's BSSID. That's the victim's MAC address. BSSID and MAC address are basically the same thing. ESSID is the network name. So since we know the BSSID and we know the channel, we should be able to make this process pretty quick, because we can tell our wireless card, don't waste any time running around on other channels, and also only go after this one network. So let's go ahead and try it, huh? Attacking, collecting a list of clients to deauth. Done. Oh, okay, well, that took us 5 seconds to get the handshake. So we don't have the password yet, but this isn't looking good for, for our poor victim, because we were able to kick some random device off the network and grab a handshake from it in literally 5 seconds. Now, again, the reason this was so quick was we specified which network to attack, and we also specified which channel it was on. So that first recon step is really why that happened as quickly as it happened. So yeah, pretty fast, but now we have the handshake for this network. So all the connected services, all the stuff on the inside is potentially ours once we break in. So now we need to get the network password. Stefan, what would you recommend for cracking this password?
We could just use aircrack, or we could use, I think I forgot the name, the one that's GPU based.
Hashcat?
Hashcat, yeah, I knew it was something with cat.
Yes. So if we had a good GPU, we should use Hashcat. Guess what we're cracking on today?
A really bad password?
No, we're cracking on a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if we were to do GPU cracking on a Raspberry Pi, I think we would be very disappointed. So we're going to use aircrack-ng, and we're also going to use this WPA list.txt. So I compiled this WPA list.txt off of just GitHub. Now, Stefan, what is the shortest Wi-Fi password you can set?
8 characters.
Exactly. So most password lists do not have customized password, like passwords for like cracking WPA Wi-Fi networks. They have passwords that are as short as like 3, 4, 5 characters, and those are all useless. You're literally just wasting your processor's time. So if we're cracking a Wi-Fi network, we need to make sure we grab a WPA password cracking list, one that hopefully is based off of real passwords and also doesn't include any passwords that aren't valid for the service we're trying to crack. So that's why it's really important to grab a WPA password list. If I do pat WPA lists.txt, you can see there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. So we're going to take all these passwords and we're going to try to crack them really, really quickly by doing air crack ng. We're going to do -w for the word list. So that's going to be WPA list.txt. And then we also need to specify the handshake that we grabbed. Now, when we use bside ng, we store it in a file called wpa.cap. So we're going to specify wpa.cap. And this should allow us to start cracking the password. And it may give us some other options if we've either grabbed beacons or handshakes from other networks as well. No, okay, so it immediately sets off cracking. So we're off using our poor little Raspberry Pi as a password cracker. But let's say that I'm just some like high school student or something that has a Raspberry Pi and I've like broken bad while like waiting at the YMCA to get picked up by my mom or whatever. And like I'm just trying to see if I can get free Wi-Fi using free tools I've seen on the internet. Well, it's not going to take us very long to get into this network because, surprise, surprise, the password is not very good. And for people that are asking if this is the new Kali suite, no, we are using Manjaro on the Raspberry Pi. And if you haven't tried it, it's Arch, by the way. And you should definitely check it out because it's actually a really great experience on the Raspberry Pi. And I've been using it a lot and I really like it. So we're now, let's see. Oh, there we go. We got the password. So it seems like our password was password123. Not a very secure password for a Wi-Fi network, but that's going to be key to us being able to take the next step of connecting to the network and scanning around and seeing what we can find. So what we're going to do is hopefully for safety, we now know the Wi-Fi password, so I can log in, I can connect, I can do whatever I want. I'm hoping that I'm already connected because I've had trouble having it populate before. Yes, I am. So, all right. So let's say I've taken the step, I've connected to the Wi-Fi network, and now I'm able to look inside. Before this, we basically are assuming I can't see inside the Wi-Fi network. All the traffic is encrypted. I can see that some devices are connected, but we've now gone, kicked a device off the network, grabbed the handshake, and cracked it all on like a $35 to $50 Raspberry Pi. Pretty cool. So the next step we're going to do is we're actually going to start scanning around the network. So I'm going to have to do sudo arp scan tac h. Please just give me the hate. Oh, okay. Please just give me the help file. All right. So somewhere buried in here is the specific command to tell it which interface you want. So if you are ever using arp scan and you can't figure it out, capital I. That's the secret. So we're going to say sudo arp scan -i WLAN 0 because that's the wireless interface that's connected to the same network as our victim now. And let's see. Oh, and then I'll add -l. So what -l does is it scans the local subnet and it should look around and see if there's anything interesting on it. So, okay, there we go. There's a couple of different things on this network that we've discovered just by doing an ARP scan. And now that we see something interesting, we can zoom in a little bit and use Nmap in order to determine if there's any interesting ports open. So I'm going to go ahead and check out this ABOCOM. That looks very suspicious to me and potentially like it could be relevant to my interests. So I'm going to run Nmap, sudo Nmap, and then I'm just going to run it on 192.168.1.245. So that's going to do its thing. And I'm also going to go down here and make sure that my virtual box doesn't go to sleep. Okay, cool. All right, so Doodlebug has returned some pretty interesting results here. We can see that there is, in fact, some ports open. So we can see that port 2121 is open, and this is an FTP server. And we can see that Nmap has actually identified this. So at this point, we're now snooping around our victim's network, and we're looking at what ports and services are available on every individual computer or device that's connected here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Hydra. Now, Stefan, can you explain the difference between an online and an offline password cracking attack?
So offline is what we did before. We captured the handshake in our example. So we captured a piece of, I guess, a hash of a password, and then we go through a password list, hash each one of the passwords in our list ourselves, and then compare those two hashes. If they match, we found the password. And now you are going to try a active brute force attack. I believe Hydra is a tool I've used ages ago. This is cool. I like to see it again. And that will basically actively try to get into the system. It will go through a password list and send a message to your target using that password, and is trying to get in. And if that works, you found the password.
Awesome. There was also a question, is Killian German? Well, in this case, we had to swap out Killian because he had a meeting at the last minute. This is Stefan, aka Spacehoon, the creator of the Wi-Fi D author. So, and yes, he is German. Yes, exactly as Stefan said, the difference between an online and an offline password attack is a password cracking attack is for Wi-Fi, we can grab the handshake, and once we have the hash, we can go on vacation and crack it from anywhere because we have the information we need. An online password attack requires us to stay connected to the network in order to brute force. So we're basically sending lots and lots and lots of login attempts and hoping that we get the right one. So we're going to be using Hydra. Now, Hydra is an excellent tool for doing this, and on a Raspberry Pi, it works perfectly well. What we're going to be doing, I saved this in a bash file just in case I forgot, but what we're going to be doing is specifying Hydra-L root. So we're going to be trying to brute force the login root, and this is a standard account for many, many different things. But here, really, if we want to be fast about this, we should look up the service that we've discovered and look for default or like hard-coded usernames. So that allows us to specify, okay, if this is an FTP server, what's the default username? What if they didn't change it? What would it be? Often people will not change it, and they'll just change the password. So this is often a good place to start. Now, the disadvantage, that's not necessarily what you have to do. If you want to be thorough, you can have a list of usernames and a list of passwords, and Hydra will take every username, try every password, but like that process of trying for every username, the whole password list takes a really long time. So you really want to try to focus the number of default usernames you're trying to log into, because it can really start to exponentially make your cracking attempt a lot longer if you're using a super long list of usernames. So in this case, we're just using one, root. We're going to try to crack that first. We're also using -p, so we have a list of FTP default passwords. That's what we're going to be using as our password list. And then we're specifying we're going to try to log into this FTP server at 192.168.1.245. And we saw on Nmap that the port number was 2121. So let's go ahead and run this. I'll just copy and paste it instead of doing the bash file, even though I love that I made a little bash file just in case. So I'll copy this and I'll paste it, and let's see if it works. This is, again, there are so many moving parts to this demo that I'm amazed nothing's gone seriously wrong yet. I hate to jinx it, but here we go. So if we take a look, let me switch over to my other screen. I have to switch my input. Okay, so let me try to switch over to my other screen. We can see there's lots and lots and lots of login attempts that are trying to go on. Root login failed, root login failed. So we can tell that somebody is interacting with our server and is attempting to log in over and over and over. And this is Hydra. This is our Raspberry Pi, which is now broken into our victim's network and is very sneakily trying all these different logins. Now, if you weren't logging this, and you probably wouldn't see it, wait, did it just say user root logged in? Okay, no, failed login. So it hasn't gotten it yet. But if you weren't actively looking at this, then it could be too late by the time you realize that somebody had connected. Now, if you set a certain number of attempts before banning a certain IP address or something, that would be one way of starting to make this more difficult. But of course, you could also just change your IP address and start all over again, or change your MAC address, connect, get a different IP address. There's ways of getting around that still that a determined attacker could get around. So, and for somebody asking what word lists I'm using, I got all of these word lists off of GitHub. There are great word lists on GitHub that are derived from real passwords. So here we can see this is continuing to attempt to log in. I'm going to go back to my attacker screen just so you can see what that looks like. Boom, there we go. Okay, so it looks like our tool has now finished cracking, and we've managed to get the password. So it didn't really take us that long because, again, it's root and Tor. But we were able to go through all these combinations, and in the end, we were able to get the credentials. Now, Stefan, what do we do? We've broken into this person's network. We've now broken into their FTP file share. What next?
I guess we look what's on there.
Yeah. And you know what, Stefan? We need to make some money here because as simulated cyber criminals, we need to be looking at what real criminals are doing, which is usually trying to make money. So, I mean, this seems pretty important. I'm willing to bet that, there's probably some important stuff here. What if we just, ransomware it, huh?
Oh, okay.
All right.
You're up to the big money.
Yeah.
It's not enough that you will grab the bank details.csv. No. You will grab them and blackmail them.
Exactly. So this is what's called double exploitation, where we're not just ransomwaring the files and basically making it so that the victim no longer has access to them. So they don't know, any of the stuff that was in there before, which is probably critical information. We're also going to go ahead and steal them. So we're going to transfer the files to us, and we're going to make it so we have the only copy. So we can maybe pour through them and maybe, yes, blackmail them and say, hey, we're going to release this movie you've been working on, or this financial data, or these personal records, or whatever else, if you don't pay us. So if even if they decide to not pay the ransom to get the files back, they may still pay the ransom in order to not have the files be released. We see this all the time. So this is something that is a real fear for businesses because, like if it happens with their critical data, then it really could get them in trouble, either if that data is released without them wanting to be, or if they never ever get access to that data again. So it seems to me that the best way of doing this would be with some really crappy Python code. How do you feel about that, Stefan?
Sounds fun.
All right, so let's take a look at my 1 year of one year computer science ransomware. So FTP ransom is the name of the program. We're just importing a couple libraries. We are basically using an automated way of connecting to FTP file shares and doing a couple different functions. So now that we know the login, we can just fill in the blanks here, root and Tor, and then all we need to do is basically say what we need to do. So we're going to try to retrieve any file called like bigsecret.txt. We're going to try to open it. We're going to try to write it. And then we're going to also get a list of file names in the directory. And then for file name and file names, go ahead and take it. So I've specified here that I want a certain file. Actually, it looks like I commented this out. Never mind. Sorry, this is dead. See, this is what I'm saying about like terrible Python ransomware. I literally have like commented out sections. Originally, I was just transferring over a file called bigsecret.txt and then opening it. But now I'm actually just doing for file and file names, find out like what the file name is, write it and get the information, and then retrieve it, generate a key, encrypt it, and then send back the encrypted version while deleting the original. So this is going to go through, find every single file on the file share, copy it to my system, encrypt it, send the encrypted version, and then delete the original, while also, to add insult to injury, dropping this disgusting ransom note at the root of the file server. So it's going to say, please send Dogecoin to dogemaster69@protonmail.ru. So like, could you imagine you try to open your like X-ray file share full of patients' precious X-ray data, and instead you get greeted with this offensive message? It would be horrible. But again, this is terrible spaghetti code that like anybody with a little bit of time and experience with Python could put together. I did this in about a couple of hours. So this is really not hard stuff. So let's go ahead, and right now I'm going to, oh God, my mouse is trapped. So I have to switch over. I'm going to go back to our victim computer. And what I want to do is I want to show off what we got going on here one last time. So here, if I type ls, oops, not ls, just ls. We can see we have bank details.csv, police record. So if I cat, like for example, police records, we can see there's data in here. We can see that we have the information row bad man, what type of slander he was accused of, and whether he was released. So Bobby ate some paint and he was released. Derry is accused of being a viper milker and he was never released. And Doobie has a big chumbus and he was released. So this is data that is critical to the operation of, for example, like a police organization. They got to know this before they make a decision. So, and if this was your permanent record, you could get in real trouble. So let's go ahead and see, if I was Derry and I'm tired of being accused of slander, maybe this is my my attempt to strike back and scramble this data so no one knows about all my misdeeds here. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead. Remember how to switch back to the pie screen. Also switch my input again, lots of moving parts. And we're going to execute this code. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out, and then I'm going to Python 3 and ftp ransom.py. And remember, I plugged in ftp ransom.py. I plugged in the details here, so I know the IP address of the victim, I know the port number, and I know the login and password because of all the steps we've done prior. Plus, I'm now on the victim's network, so I'm directly able to connect to this device locally. I don't need to go over the internet. It's all done over their Wi-Fi connection. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so we've base 64'd all the files and sent them back over to us. So we have a copy that's now base 64, and that's mostly to make sure that we preserve all the formatting and stuff in transit. And we are now the sole owner of the hospital data, the police records, and the bank details. So if anybody wanted access to this information, they're going to have to, email the ransom, basically the specified obscene email address that's in the ransom. And if I switch over to my victim computer, which I still think is hilarious that Kali Linux is our victim computer in this. Oops, no, that's me. Hi. Then instead, we have, if I go here, if I type ls, what's this .enc? I don't remember that file extension. That's not good. So if I try to, let's take a look. I don't remember who is accused of eating paint. I really need to find that out. So let me access my police records. What the hell is this? Doesn't tell me anything. So I'm out of business. I can't accuse anybody of eating paint anymore. I don't know who ate paint. I don't know who didn't eat paint. I'm really in trouble. So, I mean, if I'm a bank, then, I don't have any more financial information. I'm in trouble. But hey, there is one file here that actually doesn't have a .enc. So let's take a look. Maybe this, was all just one big mistake. Okay, well, no, it's not. All right, cool. So we've been ransomwared. We officially do not have access to our files anymore. That sucked. But basically, this could happen to anybody that has like an FTP server, a file share, or anything locally that's only connected by a Wi-Fi network. A lot of people don't realize, especially a lot of businesses don't realize, that they are really just one Wi-Fi password breach away from having somebody on their network snooping through everything from their printer cache, maybe looking through what was recently printed to see if there's any interesting information there, or looking through local services that are set up. I mean, or just looking through your security cameras and seeing parts of your business that maybe you don't want people watching constantly. So this is the kind of stuff that really affects businesses that either store information like locally, or even people who are running local file shares or servers or something like that. This doesn't just apply to FTP servers, it applies to anything. Again, it could be IoT devices on your local network. It could be printers. It could be your router. Maybe someone wants to log in and set up a VPN so that they can charge other criminals to run credit cards over your router and from your IP address. This is all stuff that actually happens. So what I've demonstrated here today is just how few resources it takes to go from being on a position of being outside the network, having no access whatsoever, and figuring out how to break through to get the Wi-Fi password, and then break into any file shares or services that you find once you're inside. So all in all, not that complicated. I think we still have like almost 15 minutes left of the stream, and we've already completed like the full process of breaking into some person's or some business's Wi-Fi, looking around, foraging until we find something of interest, and then doing like the worst possible thing we can really do here. I can't really imagine anything that would be like much worse than that, except for maybe then sending the ransomware or sending a malicious document to everybody that they know. But really, we're trying to do low sophistication. So with a Raspberry Pi and like 45 minutes, I think we've done pretty good busting into a wireless network and then breaking into a file share and running a piece of malware, which again is just like 1 year of computer science Python. So not exactly like a huge burden here in order to have a pretty big effect. And I have seen this sort of network configuration countless times. It just like really blows me away that people don't know that their Wi-Fi is a direct gateway to some of these devices that are critical in their network. Some of them might be like, again, a network share or an FTP share or an SSH login. So if you are working in a business, or if you see a business, if you patronize a business that has open Wi-Fi, you connect to it and do a scan, and you see some of these really critical things that are exposed, please let them know that these attacks exist, they're out there, and they can be done for about $50. Because if you have a Raspberry Pi and a little bit of time, most of these things just are not difficult. And if you want to try this out, there are safe ways of doing it. Here, I've just taken a virtual machine in VirtualBox. I plugged in a wireless network adapter and I connected to my own Wi-Fi network. And by just running a single line of Python, I was able to simulate a file share to attack. So if you want to practice this with the Raspberry Pi, please do not attack your neighbor or some business, because that is illegal. You will get in trouble, and it is very easy to get caught. There's also plenty of things you can do to prevent against this. So Stefan, if you wanted to prevent this attack from happening, if you had a file share, let's say for like your hackerspace or something that you wanted to keep safe, what steps would you take in order to make sure this sort of attack wouldn't be easy to pull off?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, make sure the passwords are good, both for the file share and for your network. See if you can decouple the file share from the network. So maybe you want to have a guest network and a internal network, so that everyone that has to work on the file share can work on the file share, but everybody else has their own, like subset of the network, so they can still, access it and go to the internet, but cannot access internal information and that sort of stuff. There's also, you could use enterprise Wi-Fi, so you have individual logins. And so even if a password breach happens, then that's only for one user and not for everyone. And you could distinguish between individual users. And then, I mean, there are a lot of extra stuff you could configure depending on the file share system you're using, maybe two-factor authentication and those sorts of things.
Yes, that's great. So one thing is like using a key instead of using a password is often for like SSH or other logins. It's so much stronger to use like a public key or something, like rather than using like a password. If you can do something like that, absolutely do it. Another thing is making sure to do a certain amount of like timeouts for wrong passwords. So if you have an account just constantly hitting you, rate limiting that is going to be important, because if you allow infinite wrong passwords to be guessed, eventually somebody's going to be able to break in. Now, we set something up that had absolutely minimal security, and unfortunately, some people will do that as well. So if you are able to set a rate limit for wrong logins, that will certainly make it more difficult, if not impossible, for a hacker to break in if they're just trying some of these tools that are free, open source, and easy to use. Again, this is something that I feel like any 14-year-old could do with ease. So it's important for everybody to be aware of how it works and generally how simple these sorts of attacks are. I also had a comment, nice mullet. Thank you very much. I actually we haven't filmed any episodes of Nullbyte since I moved, so it's been quite a while. So if you see me on the live stream, you'll see that my hair is a good year longer than it was when I recorded the last Nullbyte episode. So that's a little reason why you might be confused. But yeah, so of course, somebody also mentioned that enterprise Wi-Fi can still be hacked. Yes, it absolutely can, but it does mean that it's a little bit more difficult, and you can potentially configure, local accounts for people that are a bit more secure. But yes, if you execute, for example, a phishing attack, it is definitely still possible to get someone's login information, and then it takes an extra step to break in, but there you go. Like, at least you provided an extra step. Rate limiting, I think, is one of the most important things to do here. And also, if you can do some, as Stefan said, network separation, so you don't have your guest network at all connected to some of these vulnerable services, then even if somebody breaks into your guest network, the worst thing they can do is just steal your internet. They can't attempt to log into your router or something and configure like an evil VPN, which again is something that really happened. Like, a bunch of dudes did it in the Seattle area and were just selling a VPN connection for crime based on people's weak WEP Wi-Fi passwords. Super interesting story if you guys want to look it up. So yeah, so if you guys have any other questions specifically about this attack, go ahead and ask them in the chat. I think we have another like 5 minutes or so, but the tools that we used here were very, very basic. We used bsite-ng. In a previous demo, I also used Wireshark. That also works perfectly well. In fact, if you want to use Wireshark and the Andromeda deauthor, I find that is just as effective as using a wireless network adapter that allows you to do like bsite-ng and do packet injections. So if you want to do another like low-cost way of accomplishing basically the same thing without a wireless network adapter, you can just use the Andromeda deauthor or one of the cheaper open source iterations, or the deauthor from Satonic. Any one of these will work just fine. and accomplish basically the same thing of kicking a device off a network and allowing you to grab the handshake. From there, AirCrackNG runs on like most operating systems. I think Windows, Mac OS, Linux, like it works on virtually everything. So it's pretty easy to get Wi-Fi cracking, even on a Raspberry Pi running Arch, by the way, if you want to try it. So for the question, was that a WPA2 network? Yes, it was. Now, there's not a lot of things that support WPA3 at the moment. And we also, we don't want to go after a WEP network. We want to be real with you guys and use modern security. So this was just a WPA2 network with a relatively weak password. And you might think like, what business would do that? Like every business, you guys, you have no idea. If you just try the address of the business or their phone number, it's like 50%. It's crazy. So you would be amazed to see how many different businesses will set things up like this behind a weak Wi-Fi password. And really, if they had a super long one, it would be much harder to do this, although there are still ways. I would say if you had a strong Wi-Fi password and I was really determined to break in, I could just do some Wi-Fi spoofing. So we've even experimented with this on the Wi-Fi deauthor, where you kick somebody off of their real Wi-Fi network and you create a fake version that sends them to a page that says, the router's updating, please put in the password to apply the update and get internet back. And people will generally get frustrated enough to just put their password right in. And that's often how you can capture a password from someone who has a much longer or more sophisticated password, just by tricking someone into thinking that it's a router update. Happens all the time. So even a long and secure password is not always safe because somebody might give it out by accident because they get phished. It actually happened to me. I will admit, before I was a security researcher, I was working at a startup and someone did that to us and started using our office's Wi-Fi. I think it was someone that lived nearby. So it is a very real and viable way of getting even a longer and complicated password. So, VLANs and other more complicated ways of segmenting your network will prevent the damage if someone does manage to break in. But just realize that there's always ways of taking advantages in gaps in people's knowledge to try to get that password. Let's see. So I'm trying to see. Addresses like 123 Main Street work almost every time. Yeah, it's just hard for them to remember. So they're just like, what is the address you're at now? So yeah. Looking to see if we have any other good questions. Kicking them off the network. Yep, that's what we're doing. Social engineering attack is the best and the worst. Yeah. Okay, and please don't admit that you've been using your neighbor's Wi-Fi. But yeah, so I think that we're pretty much done with this demonstration. Thank you guys for watching this fully live episode. It's great to have other members of the community on. And if you want to check out some more Wi-Fi hacking techniques, you should definitely take a look at Stefan's tools. He is the creator behind the Wi-Fi Duck and the deauthor. So Stefan, where would people go if they wanted to see more of your tools and your work?
You can find me on Twitter, that's at Spacesoon, or at SpacesoonTech. You can go to spacesoon.store, or just search for Spacesoon on YouTube. I guess you will also find the videos we did together, the live streams on Security Forward.
Yep, and we're also planning on doing a conference talk. Isn't that right, Stefan?
Yeah,
yeah,
but we do not have any set information on that yet that we could share.
Yeah. So look forward to us also doing a conference talk in the future. If you're coming to in-person conferences once they're safe again, we look forward to hopefully bumping into you. And also, if you want to check out more live streams like this, we actually do them on the Security Forward channel like 3, sometimes 4 times a week. You can check us out on hackingwithfriends.com, or you can go to Security Forward, that's Security FWD on YouTube, and catch us there if you want to ask questions on Wednesday, or also catch us on our live Fridays or on Mondays when we check out new operating systems and other cool security tools. Also, if you want to check out any more of my personal work, you can always go to hack.gay or find me on Twitter at Kody Kinsey, just my full name. All right, I think that's all we've got, you guys. Thank you so much to everyone who hung out with us today. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks to Stefan for filling in for Killian. Again, this is Stefan. He is German and not Killian. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.